the beach, and I was picking up driftwood, and I was making creatures out of the driftwood and all this. And so he thought I was going to burn it in a fire. Because he's like, oh, what would you like it for? And I'm like, oh, I'm a burner. And he's like, oh, well, you know, I have this other person coming in getting some firewood and whatever. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not that kind of a burner. Like, I'm a wood burner. And then so I explained what I do. And then he's like, well, you know what, I'm a turner. So then he explained to me what he did. And from that point on, I can't get rid of the guy. Like, he's over at my house like 3 times a day. He lives just around the corner. And honestly, he's turned into a fantastic mentor and almost like a family member now. Like, he comes in my house, the dogs love him, and he just comes down to my studio. And he's been teaching me, he's been turning for 52 years. So out of his experience, and he has many pieces in different galleries as well, he's learning from me and I'm learning from him. So it's been a fantastic relationship. So he helped me with the rocking horse. The rocking horse design is actually his design. He did it for his grandkids a while back, and we were just talking over Christmas, and I was wondering what I wanted to do, and he says, well, would you ever burn a rocking horse? I said, well, yeah, that'd be actually kind of cool, like a carousel rocking horse though. And then we got talking, and he got really excited, so he brought me the parts for the rocking horse, and I just went at it. I hand sanded it all and started to burn it, and then I got crazy busy with different Christmas custom pieces as well. So whenever that happens, he jumps in and he put it together for me, and then we collaborated with the dragonfly here. I can hand the dragonfly around as well. So originally I came to him and I said, like, I've got this idea of a dragonfly to go with it, because there's dragonflies hidden in here. Why can't there be one actually sitting on the horse? So we talked about it and how it would be done, and yeah, so we both, I gave him design, and I was too busy to turn it, so he turned the body for me, and we actually put a wire in here it's stiff, but it is bendable, because you know how dragonflies' tails kind of move around, and then there's a magnet, and there's a bolt sunken in there, so it can be magnetic. So I can pass that around. You want to check it out. There's designs all over to incorporate the design of the horse with it as well.
You couldn't turn the horse side.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I can send this around. It's a little heavy, though. So, and there's also design on the seat. So basically, when I kept going, I could have just stayed on the surface area of what you would see from the sides, but I don't really work that way. So, yes. Oh, the camera, I'm sorry. There we go. You want me to go closer to the camera?
Oh, no, wait, no, okay.
No, we're good? Okay.
I'm getting you from here.
Oh, okay, sorry. And there you go. So if you look at all the different detail, and there's bees, there's braids there. If I turn it a little bit this way, or is it going to go the opposite of the camera? That's the tail, that's why. There's a dragonfly on the nose. When I create things, I want to create an emotion that comes from myself and from people. While I was burning this, I was completely in my own world. So I was just so happy with how this is turning, and it just kept going and kept coming out of me. And there's even underneath. I even burned underneath. So say if the saddle was put on and attached, that's how that is. And most of my large pieces are all titled as well. This one's a Ride Through the Meadow and signed. Thank you. It's something I love doing. So, I mean, I have a sore back at the end of it. My fingers are numb. I actually developed carpal tunnel in my wrists. Last year it's very busy for me from May to December. But I work and I work and I work, and so I developed actually carpal tunnel. So for about a week, I was supposed to be for 4 weeks, but it only lasted a week where I couldn't burn anymore. But actually, that's not true. My husband told me that I couldn't burn for at least a week. That was on the Monday. That weekend we were going to the island with some university friends, and so I couldn't burn. So he's like, well, he was happy that I was at least forced to not burn. Well, on that Monday, he told me I couldn't burn for a week for my own safety. And then on Tuesday, I couldn't stand not burning anymore, so I taught my left hand how to burn. So luckily I'm ambidextrous, so I ended up burning with this hand instead. So, yes.
Try doing this. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's a Tai Chi exercise.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very good for the joints, right from the elbow to
Oh, because it gets the blood flow going through
Yeah,
it?
it gets the, well, what we call the chi,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the energy going into your hands.
That's a good tip. Thank you. Yeah, I've actually had to. At one point, I couldn't close my fingers. I would burn and burn and burn. It was after the Port Hope Art Festival. I started on another bowl, and it's actually very similar to this bowl. And because of the ridge that's on there,
Okay, you should have left it down.
oh, I'm sorry.
I'll get it.
Oh, okay. Well,
Don't stay out. Pick me, pick me. Oh, there we go.
There we go. So see the ridge on the bowl? Because I'm in there for so long, and I will burn for about. I can burn for about 6 hours straight. The only thing that really stops me is if I get hungry or if my husband calls. And he's actually learned to call me at lunchtime because otherwise I'll forget. And or I have alarms on my phone for my kid's bus, so I don't miss their bus. But yeah, because of the angle that I'm going at, that's another safety thing to talk about as well. Is to make sure you're holding your wrist at a proper angle and not in a certain angle for a long time, because you will develop danger. Like, I'm not sure if you guys can see the bump that's on your wrist here. This one's a normal bump, and this one is a lot more progressive. It's actually okay right now. It's not too swollen, but usually if I'm working for a while, you'll see this bump start to swell up, and I'm smarter now because this is my profession, that I'm not going to keep pushing myself for 8 hours straight to burn, because that's how this happened. I couldn't actually close my fingers. Well, you can see my hands shaking. They have there is some residual effect on there. It's always a little bit swollen because I do burn so much. But yeah, I got to the point where I couldn't close my fingers. That's when I taught my left hand how to burn. Yes.
The piece that's being attached
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a good question. So every piece is different when it comes to the hours. So I'm glad you said this specific piece, because I get that question all the time. How long does it take you to burn? It all depends on the piece. That one, I started at the demo. I did the demo for, I think it was like 30 minutes, but to complete it, I think it was about 48 hours burning. And then there's also the sealing and so on of that piece. That piece goes for $2.95. Pardon? That's all for now. I found that selling bowls, it's as I said, like, this is for my family, so that's how I bring the money in. So I have marked my bowls higher. I found that I brought them down to $2.95, and because it's under 300, the people that are buying it are more inclined to buy it at $2.95 than in the like $3.50. So it all depends. Once my name gets even bigger and bigger, then every year you have to go up and incline when it comes to your prices. I've had previous clients before come back to me for new pieces to be done, and I'll explain to them that because my experience is going up, the price does go up. I mean, you always have those special clients that you do a deal for. Like I have this one lady who bought my very first custom piece. She came to me for a custom piece, and I have a sweet spot for her, so I will lower the price for her, but that's because she started my kind of trail when it came to customs.
Same piece. Are there concerns of what kind of finish you want a wood-burning piece?
Yes.
And that finish, how is the process of that wood-burning? You called it
Post-catalytic lacquer. It's a two-part lacquer. So you actually mix it yourself. You can get other kinds that are pre-catalytic, and they're at the store, and they can be stored, I think, for like 9 months. This doesn't last as long, so you make a jar of it, two together, and you shake it up, and then you use it. That stuff is fantastic. So when that seals, it's like a plastic. It's food safe.
brushed on?
You can brush it on, and you can spray it on. That one there was done with an airbrush, but say my pens and smaller pieces I've done with brushes. The reason bowls are easier to do with an airbrush, to get a nice coat on there, you put the first coat on, you're going to get like orange peel look to it. And you go down and you sand it, and then you go and do it again, and then you sand it. So it's a lot of different processes. Now your other question was the fact of if it's different for burning. So for a bowl that doesn't have any burning on it, you could put it, like with Ken, he puts about 9 coats of lacquer on his pepper mills and on his bowls and such. He's known for his finish on all the galleries because it's like a glass finish. That's too many coats for my burning, because what happens is it starts to obscure the burning, and then you don't see it anymore, and it looks fantastic on the grain of the wood, but then you start to blur out the design, you don't see it as much anymore. Another thing you have to consider, so for bowls I do about 3 coats of the post-catalytic lacquer. The other thing to consider is tung oil. So a lot of designs, depending on the detail of the design, I can put tung oil on it. That bowl there's no tung oil on it. Because there's so much detail in it, if you put tung oil on it first and then the lacquer, you blur a lot of the detail together, because tung oil has a natural tendency to darken things, and you'll darken a lot of the already darkened areas, and it kind of blurs the piece together. So you can do a vinyl vinyl thinner on there, and then you do the lacquer on top of that. This here is a wipe on poly. The reason for that is because if I were to spray on here, so many different angles on that, you're going to get runs, you're going to get so many different textures, and it's not worth the hassle to go back and sand everything down. So this is a wipe on poly. There are 2 coats on it. First coat you put on, you sand it down after it dries, you clear off the dust, and then you put another coat on, and again you sand it, and I buff this as well. I'm not 100% happy with the coat. I think I'm going to put another coat on there, but that one's done by a poly wipe on, and this one is a spray bomb. The reason why I do a spray bomb for my portraits, it makes the portrait look better than with the lacquer airbrush. Lacquer airbrush, it causes the bubbles that can happen the first layer, then you got to sand it down. I'm not a big fan of sanding my portraits down because sometimes you lose some of the detail in there, or it obscures the image a little bit, so I do a spray bomb for this. And you guys know what a spray bomb is, right? It's just the ones you go to the store and you spray on. So it's a learning curve. Like you just got to learn what's best for you. But yeah, with burning you have to kind of play with it, and it depends on your kind of burning. Like as I said, the more detail you have, you don't want to use tung oil. My bowls, my goblets, my cutting boards, all of those are food safe. Cutting boards are tung oil, and once that seeps in, it's beeswax. There's no lacquer on those ones. But yeah, it all depends on what kind of burning it is. Yes.
In the demonstration you did for us, you started with a line. At what point, how did you decide that line would be a leaf?
Well, this right here, I kind of had an idea that I wanted to do a maple leaf down his face anyways, to start to make the face kind of come down. My last one I had, it was an acorn leaf, so it was more of a straight one, so I wanted to try a maple leaf this time.
So that inspiration came before
I just started burning? Yeah, that one specifically, because it's a face, I want to kind of plan out how I want to do the face, but eventually when I get up to the top, like right now I'll do what'll eventually turn into kind of like a crown. It's going to be another, actually no, I'm going to do an acorn leaf this time. You got me?
Getting close. Right there is trying.
Okay.
Up a little bit more.
So I'll come with a vague idea of what I want to do, and that can easily change. I've actually had, I was working on a 4-foot piece one time on a plank, and it started off as I was planning on doing like a kind of a totem pole idea. Pardon?
Keep going.
A totem pole idea, and it ended up to turn into a 4-foot dragon. So it changed very drastically. However, and you know what? You can see that I'm not perfect. I just made a mistake. However, you won't see that later on because it'll get incorporated with the veins of the acorn, anyways, or leaf. Sorry. Because you got to remember, I'm doing nature pieces, so nature's not perfect. So you gotta be easy on yourself when you're doing this stuff. Like nature is not perfect. All you're doing right now is I'm working with nature of the wood and working with the beauty of the wood already, and just adding to it.
Visualize that before you do it?
Yeah, so this guy here, he is an existing character. As I said, he's people sometimes know him as the Green Man and so on, but this is my version of him. I've wanted to do him again because I already did one bowl and I didn't have him for very long. I've been advised by a person that collects a lot of art I should hold back some of my pieces so I can put into a special collection to add more value later on. And that's fantastic advice, and that makes perfect sense. But as I said, I do this for my family. So this is money, so it's extra money that we have to do whatever we want with it. So you know, my husband's a mechanic, so he works on flat rate. So you know, if he has a slow week or whatever, it's okay because I bring in some money as well. I mean, in the future, it's probably a good idea to pull some of my pieces back, but at this moment,